So in this video, I am going to go over replacing the instrument cluster in a Ranger with one with a Tach that came out of a junkyard Explorer. There was the black face one, and there was also this fancy white face one that I found. And so I'm going to try both of them out and see what happens. This one came out of one that had like a different color interior, but I think it'll still work out pretty well. It kind of matches the dashboard, like a gray color, but otherwise everything's in the same place. What we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to take out the speedometer housing and replace it with this one, because this one has the correct mileage on it and this one's wrong. So I'm gonna pull the gauges out of here, and then we're gonna take them inside. I'm gonna decide which one I want to use, and then we'll go from there. First thing you're going to want to do is remove this radio surround bezel. The radio's not installed in this. It's just sitting there. There's some connectors here. You don't have to remove those, because really you just need access to get this part off. So this hanging here is just fine. But as you can see, this radio's not connected. I haven't gotten around to doing anything yet with it. So next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to remove this panel. This panel, there are some 7mm screws under here, and there's a couple under the hood release here that'll hold it on. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this will pop off. And then I'll show you after that. Best thing I've got for this, I've got a 1/4 inch impact driver. And then I've got some of these from Harbor Freight, and you can see I've got 6mm, 7mm here, 8mm. So just pop it in here because it has that quick release mount. It just clips in. Put this in reverse. And we'll just go ahead and remove these. You gotta kind of feel this one by your fingers because it's not very easy to get to. You can see I'm not even on it. There we go. You gotta get the right angle. Mine only had 1 screw in it, but I'm going to put both of them back in, because in the junkyard they had 2 screws on there. And then once you get this off, this just kind of pulls forward with these clips right here. So you can see they just kind of go out. Lay that off to the side. Now this metal part needs to come off, because you can't get to the screws on the bottom part of this panel without getting rid of those first. And for those, we need 8mm. Same thing, just get on there and make a lot of noise. On mine, there was 2, 3, 4. Ow, that was hot. Five. Just leave that down there for now. And then we go back to 7mm. So there's 2 screws at the bottom, and then up here There's 3 screws right here. I'm not gonna be able to get the center one with this, so I'll just use one of my ratchets. And since I can't get that center one, I'll just use my 7mm 1/4 inch drive. Now, this whole panel is going to be able to pop off of here. And to do that, you just grab it and pull it. It'll come out from the top. If you have a tilt steering wheel, tilt the steering wheel down. It'll make it easier. This one does not have a tilt steering wheel, so this just kind of has to be manhandled out of here. And it will flip on the hazards. And then you don't really have to disconnect the wiring over here. It'll just kind of lay off to the side for right now. And then you've got 4 7mm holding in the black ones. Don't touch these ones. These are for something else. And these really small ones are to hold the face on. And so we're going to pull those out now. Except for this doesn't fit. Let me see if I have an extension. And I have a little extension here. These little things from Harbor Freight are nice because they have a magnet on the inside. So, and then this thing does too, but it's got a magnet so it holds onto the, it'll keep gripping the screw. But on those two it didn't for some reason. But that's fine. I'll just pull them out. And then now the whole instrument cluster can come out. If you have an automatic transmission, you're gonna have this clip down here, and you're gonna have to unclip that because it's gonna have the little wire that's connected up to the shifter mechanism. But if you have a manual transmission, if you can see from these, I removed the automatic transmission thing, and when it comes out, it also takes with it the little park reverse neutral drive thing out of there. And you can see that mine just has a blanking plate in it because it's a manual transmission, and so that's going to go into the new gauge set. So really all you want to do now is you want to pull it out. Yeah, come on. You want to pull it out and then make sure that the wiring is going to match up, because if the wiring doesn't match up, then you're going to have to rewire some stuff on your own. So I'm gonna pause it for a second. All right, so here's the clusters. This is the cluster that just came out of mine, and there's the wires for it. And then there's the cluster that came from the junkyard vehicle. They look the same, so what I'm gonna do is, just as a test, I'm gonna take the wires that came with the junkyard cluster, and I'm gonna plug them in to mine. And then we're gonna see if they fit. And if they fit, then it's gonna be a direct drop-in replacement. And then we'll test it out. They're different sizes as well, so you don't have to worry about mixing them up. The little clips are in different places, so yeah, you're not gonna make any mistakes on this, like connecting it together. They only go in one way. All right, and as you can see, it all clips together. So the only thing I guess I can look for is see if I'm missing any wires here. Let's see, I don't have the second from the right. Neither does that one. This one doesn't have the first pin, and then one way over. Same thing up here. This one's missing those 2 pins, and the bottom one is fully in there. I'm missing one. Let me see. Hope it's missing one as well. So it looks like all the wiring is there, so this might have the Tach signal coming from the ECU. So, remove that one off to the side, and we're gonna go ahead and try out the white face gauges. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug them in now. And we're gonna see, because there could be something weird, like a calibration thing or something with the Tach, and it might not work quite right. You know, something like that. Ugh, man. Oh well, that's close enough. Alright, let's see what happens. Alright, I get most of my lights. Check fuel cap is lit up. Check gauge is lit up. But other than that, it's rolling. Let's start this thing up. And the Tach's working. And it looks like everything else is working as well. So that looks correct. So I don't know what the check fuel cap is, but the check engine light's on normally, and then the seatbelt light, but all the other lights went out, and so that's okay. So let's check all the other stuff. Alright. So I do have that turn signal, so it looks like the turn signal bulb here might be burned out. Oh, there we go. Now I got it. It just had a bad connection. Alright, and there's the... And then let's try out the... It looks like it's got a couple of bulbs. It's got a bulb here that's burned out. Let's check that one out real quick. Where are you? Which bulb is it? Is it this one? But yeah, you can see that little plate needs to be in there, because otherwise you're going to get a lot of light bleed coming out of there. Let's see, those are warning lights. So it's got to be this big one here. And as you can see, that is pretty burnt out. So I'm going to grab one out of my cluster. I know they're not burned out. I'm doing this by feel on the back side. I can't really see what I'm doing. And now I have light there. So now the Tach is lit up. That side of the gauges are lit up. All the gauges are lit up. So looks like everything's good. It has just under a full tank of fuel. That's good. So I think we're sitting all right. So I'm gonna install, well, actually what we need to do is we still need to take it back out so we can switch out I'll show you how to switch out the actual speedometer mechanism. So we'll get to that in just a second. All right, so here we have the 2 gauge clusters. And what we're gonna wanna do is we're gonna take out these smaller sockets, or these sockets. We're gonna take out these smaller bolts right here. They're both hex, and it looks like they're Torx. So it depends on what you have to use. And then if you need to replace the front plastic, you can do that as well. Like this one's okay. It's not all cracked up, but you can swap it out with another one if it doesn't work out. But obviously you can't use this one because this one doesn't have the surrounds for the correct, for the tachometer and stuff. So let's get to that. We're gonna need, let's see what size that is real quick. Let's see, this is a 6mm. 6mm is a little bit too big, so I'm going to assume that it's a 5mm. Nope, it's a 5.5mm, which I don't happen to have on me. But what I do have is I do have a small T10. Let's see, T10? Nope. Let's try T15. Let's see, T20. T20 is too big, so we need that T15, which I believe I just had right here. Yep. Here's my T15. So T15 Torx is what we need. All right, so there's the gauges with the face removed, with the lens. And so now what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to get this apart. So I'm looking around and I'll figure out how to get it apart, and then I'll come back on here and show you. All right, so the speedometer and the tachometer are held in place, and you just pull these straight out. You can see they just have contacts in there. Do the same thing over here. Try not to mess up the gauges. So when you have them back in, try to make sure they're straight up and down. So that way, like, this isn't all the way down here. That's way out of range because I don't know if it's gonna set properly. So make sure it's over here. Yeah, see, it just pops right out. And then I imagine the speedometer is the same way. Yep. All right, so what we need to do now is we need to get the actual speedometer housing off of there and put the speedometer housing off of that one on there. I really just want to change the odometer, which you can see is bolted on, and that's what I'm going to end up doing. But we need to get this thing off of here first, and to do that, we are going to have to unscrew it. So take off these small bolts right here. They look real small. That's the 6. Hope they're not the 5.5. Nope, these ones are a 5mm exactly. So take off the 5mm right here. I'll use my socket to do that. I'm going to use both hands so I don't break like a needle off or something, because I want these orange needles, and then I'll get back. All right, now once the screws are out, there's 4 of them. Now we just have the needle to worry about. I've heard people using a couple spoons to pry under here, like just wedge under there and pry it up. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very carefully have it up there totally flat, and I'm just going to pull straight off of here. There we go. You see that? It launched it a little bit, but there's my needle. And then we've got the mechanism here, and you can see that the odometer mechanism just pulls right off. This is where the speedometer went, and you can see that with all the screws removed, it just pulls right off, and then it's just attached with a ribbon cable, or not a ribbon cable, but it's just attached with a little connector right there. So there it is. There's the white one came off of the white face gauges, and then here's the speedometer from the white face gauges. I'm going to keep it with it just in case the calibration is a little bit off. And then we're going to do the same thing over here. So I'm going to remove the ones off of the original gauges, and then I'm going to transfer it over to there, and I'll show you that in a second. So on my old gauges, there's this itty bitty sized hex, and to remove that, I'm going to have to use a pair of needle nose, because I don't have anything that small. Well, I mean, I probably do, but what you're going to do is just kind of grip it like this on 2 of the sides, and then just turn it. It's not going to be too difficult, so I'm going to do that. And there's the 2 odometers side by side. And please don't do this by, say, I want this one, the 176, so I can roll back the odometer. Please don't do that. I'm leaving mine because look at that. It's like almost 250,000 miles on it. I think that's pretty cool. And I'm going to keep that. So I'm going to put that one into the new one. And you can see they're identical to each other. So it'll slide in there. The only difference is that the gauges, they're going to be black on this one instead of being white, like on the white face gauges. But, all right, I'm going to put it in and show you. So you're going to want to take the connector, plug it in. It only goes in one way. And then just place the odometer, the speedometer stud, whatever needle part goes through the square hole. And then it'll just sit down flush on here, and then that's when you go and change you can bolt everything back up. Now I've got it back in there. When you're tightening up these screws, just try to take it easy. Just snug them down. You don't need to crank down on them, otherwise you're going to start splitting this plastic here, and that's attached to the gauge face, and then you're going to kind of be screwed a little bit. So try not to do that. So now that it's in there, you can just put it back in the white part, the back part, where all the lights are down here. And now that they're in here, this is going to be your opportunity to clean the gauges, because as you can probably see a little bit here, it's a little dirty because my fingers are dusty, and so I put dust all over there. So I'm going to wipe them off, and then don't use anything significant. Like, I'm just using my shirt. My shirt is, honestly, it's a little bit sweaty, so I'm just wiping it off of there, and it takes the dirt right off. And then we're going to put the needle on. And the needle, what I'm going to do with that is, it's just a little bit right there. So I'm just going to set it, put it on there like that. And then you can go for a drive and have your GPS going and just set yourself to a certain speed. So like 20 miles an hour or something. And then you can just push the needle right on. I'm going to test it before I put everything back together. And if it doesn't work, then I'll show you what you can do about it. But for now, this is where we're sitting at. And then here's the blanking plate. Since I don't have an automatic transmission, you can see where it goes in. This little clip over here on this side matches up with a little hole right there. And all you're going to do is just pop this in, and then it blanks out where normally it said park, reverse, neutral, drive, and then it'll also prevent light from coming down there. And then you can see my black face odometer is in there. And now we're going to put it in. I'm going to go for a short drive, set it at like 20 miles an hour, and then I'm just going to pull the needle off, and I'm going to push it on right at 20 miles an hour, and I'll show you that. I'm not entirely sure why this clip didn't have any audio, but as you can see here, I started it up and it's sitting at 20 miles per hour. So I'm going to want to pull the needle off and put that back down at 0. And then I pushed it in a little more because there was a little bit of light bleeding out. And you can see that I've got my Waze set up right there, so I can see how fast I'm going. And as I'm driving, I'm looking down and I'm doing about 15 miles per hour, but you can see the speedometer sitting at about 25 miles per hour. So even though I tried to set the thing at 0, sitting still, it still was too high. So now what I'm trying to do is set it at 15 miles per hour. And it's a little difficult to get the needle onto the little stud for the speedometer as you're driving, but you can do it. It's just make sure you're in like a slow speed area where it's not too bad. So now you can see I'm gonna accelerate a little bit up to about 20. And then we can see Waze says I'm doing 20 from the GPS. And then I'm gonna turn around and go past that speed thing and see what it says. Now what I'm doing is I'm just going to be driving past the little speed radar control thing that tells you how fast you're going. And I'm trying to sit right at 20 miles per hour. And as I go past, you can see that it says I'm doing 20 miles per hour. So I would say that it is good to go. Speedometer's working great. I'll check the tachometer with the OBD2 reader next time I'm driving it. But other than that, it looks like it's working really well, which I'm totally stoked that it works. Of course, your mileage might vary with how you can get that thing in there. And then I accelerated up, got it up pretty high up there, and it was just, I don't know. I wouldn't ring the thing up to about 6,000 RPM. That might have been what the 4-liter engine red line was, but otherwise it works. And here you can just see that I've got the lens all ready to go. I'm about to put it on there. This is going to be the last time that you're going to be able to take and clean the lens. So make sure you clean it on both the inside and the outside before you put the thing back in. And also check your gauge faces to make sure that there's no dirt or fingerprints or anything like that on it. Wipe it down with some kind of mild cleaning cloth or something along those lines. And so I'm just going to put it back together. And there we go. Now I have a set of white face gauges with the tachometer, and they're factory.